Celeb Savant is a career retrospective type interview focusing on singers, actors, and industry experts. Join Barrett Edelstein now as he dives into the entertainment world.
American Kate Hyman is a seasoned professional in the world of artists and repertoire. She has a true passion for discovering and nurturing talented musicians. She has a keen ear for identifying potential hit songs and has a talent for spotting up-and-coming artists before they hit it big, working with some of the biggest names in the business. Her unique approach combines creative strategy with a commercial mindset. Kate comes from two generations of entertainment executives. Her grandfather, Elliot Hyman, purchased Warner Brothers from Jack Warner. Her father, Kenneth, ran the studio. Kate currently has a successful joint venture with BMG Rights and has extensive experience as an A&R executive at Warner Brothers, V2, Imago, Chrysalis, MCA, ZE or Island Records, and Shelter Records. She's also the founder of Little Monster, a children's music label. Kate's signings include Moby, the I Am Sam soundtrack, Toots and the Maytals, Paula Cole, Amy Mann, Sinead O'Connor, Will Party, Julia Wolf, Beth Orton, and Tiana Esperanza. Up next on Celeb Savant, we've got Kate Hyman. Where are you in the world and how are you doing?
Well, first of all, I'm doing very well, thank you. Partially because I live in Woodstock, New York, in a beautiful old farmhouse, which I guess for America is old. It's 250 years old.
Oh, wow.
And I'm looking outside. There's flowers everywhere. I've got my dogs lying next to me. My cat's trying to get on the computer. So everything is good.
I know it's been a multi-year, decade journey. At what age, where there's a child or teenager, did you think, okay, I want to be in this music creative world, and how did that journey progress?
Oh boy, it's a long one. It's funny, I studied archaeology at Berkeley University, and I would go on digs every summer, and I wanted to be an archaeologist. And one summer, my father, who was in the film business, said, honey, you've got to get a job this summer. So he had a friend called Denny Cordell, who, with Leon Russell, had Shelter Records. They found Tom Petty. They had Jimmy Cliff. In fact, every artist they had was a very small company in Hollywood, was successful. I interviewed for the job and became the receptionist. They asked me if I could type. I said yes. I could not type, not for the life of me. They figured that out within a week, and they fired me. A week later, Denny called me and said, I'd like to hire you back as an A&R person, because when you were here, you were playing music the whole time. And this was during the time that people didn't listen on headphones. They actually played music live in the office. And he said, I've never recognized anything you've ever played, but it's all really good. So that's how I got my first A&R job. And archaeology was the road not taken. I just fell in love with finding new artists and realized that I actually had a talent for that, recognizing good music. And back then, that's all that mattered.
What does it mean to be an A&R person?
I worked at Chrysalis. I worked at Imago. I worked at V2. I worked at Z Records, the famous Z Records, the greatest New York independent label ever. And we had Suicide, and we had John Cale, and we had Lydia Lynch, Einstürzende Neubauten, the Swans. But that was working with, finding the producer, first off, working with the songs, figuring out what the record would be in terms of the songs, not writing them in the studio necessarily, although that would happen, and just looking after them also as a therapist. And uh, signing artists that were brand new. And the label at that point had these characters that ran the labels. They all had crazy personalities. And they would pretty much decide to make something happen. It was during the times eventually of payola, where the radio stations, you pay them with either money, drugs, hookers, whatever it might be.
Oh, wow.
And you knew that your record had a chance to be heard. It didn't mean it was necessarily going to be successful, but you knew that people would hear it. So as much as payola was annoying and wrong to me, I look back and I think, actually, there's payola now. It's just in a very different way. And of course, things were different. There weren't as many stations, and the word algorithm did not exist. So the other part of being an A&R person to me was always to be a manager within the company. So if people weren't paying attention to your artist, you'd be the one standing up for them. If you needed to, jumping on a desk and screaming, knocking things off the desk, anything that you needed to do to make sure that your artist was recognized and not forgotten and was a priority. So that's A&R. Now, do you want to ask me what it is now?
Before we get there, was a payola a thing that happened across all stations all the time or not necessarily?
It happened at the big stations. The promotion person would walk in to the station personally and put the vinyl on their record player and basically tell the promoter they had to play it and hand over whatever it was. Not all DJs did that. That was just a handful of the very, very powerful ones. I can't remember the name of the song, but there's a few stories like this one promotion guy, Rick Aliberti, who sadly just died. He went in and the guy played the B-side by mistake of the single, and it became a smash. I mean, that was the song that became a smash. It was the band Queen, but I can't remember exactly what the song was. So those kinds of things would happen as well. It was super fun. I mean, it was really, really fun. My father used to say to me, this is back then, people in the record business are gentlemen posing as crooks, and people in the film business are crooks posing as gentlemen. And back then, that's kind of what it was like. Everybody wanted to be a mobster. In fact, I remember there was a girl called Christina who was signed to Z Records, and her manager was Tommy Mottola.
Yes.
And Tommy took me for a walk. He said, let's go for a walk. And he took me for a walk along the East River in New York. I said to him, Tommy, do you think you're a mobster? Do you think you're trying to threaten me or scare me? And I just started giggling. I mean, I thought it was the funniest thing ever. But that was sort of the kind of thing that would happen. When I worked at MCA Records, Irving Azoff's wife called me, and this was my first big label that I worked at. And I was quite young still. She sent me a cassette at the time and called me, and I said, I don't want to sign it. She said, do you know who I am? And I said, yeah, you're Irving's wife. And she said, you do realize that if you don't sign it, I will blacklist you and you will never have another job. I started giggling so hard. And she was like, why are you laughing? And I could not stop laughing. And I said, because finally I got the words out. I said, because I didn't realize that I was that powerful or important that I could be blacklisted so early in the game. And she was furious, absolutely furious. And I did not sign the artist.
And then were you blacklisted?
No, of course not.
Ah, it's just
Of
the
course.
threats. Okay.
She went to Irving and Irving started laughing as well. He was like, Shelley, stop it. Leave her alone. She's a kid.
Okay, so now let's go back to your comments earlier. What is A&R now?
I was at BMG for the last 4 years ago. I was there for 12 years. And it always seemed to me that with these majors, there'd be about 3 or 4 years where everybody was excited and pure and into the music. And then suddenly it would change. And it was business people that took over. And they just wanted you to sign things that were massive. Way before that, Spotify occurred. It actually even started with MTV when people started looking at people and thinking they had to be beautiful and young. But when Spotify happened, when people thought that they could have music for free, and they were getting music for free, now it's a bunch of kids going through, probably with AI, the largest numbers on Spotify, doing research, and bringing those artists in. If you're lucky, they actually would listen to the music. Not always. So A&R has become pretty much, AI is going to take over. And these kids don't know what A&R is, or A&R is no longer what it was. And so also they would sign an artist now and no longer be involved in supporting them through the label. Everybody keeps their head down. When I say everybody, I don't mean everybody. There's still great A&R people, but I'm talking most. And these poor artists, there's so many great ones that actually could have careers, the ones that will. So there's an artist that has 20 million streams because they have a song, one song, and you don't even listen to the other music that they have or the other songs that they have. And so you have a success with this one song, and it's a one-hit wonder. We all used to know about those. The artists that are bigger, that all the kids talk about, they think that it happened overnight. And if you really look back, most of them had 4 or 5 different bands beforehand. I mean, like a Crosby, Stills and Nash, they were all in different bands. And Young, who's my favorite, Neil, and he's why I actually fell in love with music. I don't think there's such a love of music. It's become much more of a business. And lately, I've always been a rebel, but I've become more of one. I talk to kids that are artists. They don't want to be on Spotify anymore. They don't want to hear the word algorithm. They don't want to hear that they can't play a club unless they can draw 350 people and bring in the other 2 artists. In other words, organize the whole night. They don't want to do that anymore. So I see a circle and I see it coming around. I'm trying to figure out now how that's going to work, what's going to happen. But I do feel that artists have cottoned on. They don't want to play the game. They certainly don't want to sign to majors because they've done all the work. And then the majors pick them up once they get to a certain point. They don't want to be business people. And so many artists, they just can't. It breaks them. It hurts their soul. They should be writing songs. They should be performing. And at the moment, I think the business is, am I allowed to swear?
Yes. Yeah, of course.
The business is completely fucked.
I hear from so many artists, especially when it comes to the labels, they want to create, and then the label says, okay, when you get to 500 followers on TikTok and 500,000 followers on Instagram, and you got so many monthly followers on Spotify, then we'll look at you. And I'm like, it's not about that. It's about the music. It's about the content. It's about the passion. And then now it's just about how many followers and how many
Not anymore. It's a business that I did not sign up for. But when I left BMG and started my own company, it was an A&R. I wanted to prove that artists still wanted A&R. And I was proved right. They still want it. But then it became more of like okay, will you manage me? It started to move into that. So I tried to help them with that and learned all about the marketing, which is basically ads, and learned about the bloody algorithms and the DSPs and this posting. And I would try to help them with that. And the great artists that didn't necessarily have a hit song yet, they're devastated. I believe a true artist is an artist that, whether they're successful or not, there's different definitions of success.
Yes.
And to me, success means you've written a great song. It also means that you're enjoying the journey. And it also means that you never feel like you've hit your peak. You always feel like you can do better. It's a constant progression. And now, if an artist has one song that does well, they can't understand why their streams suddenly go down as soon as somebody working Spotify streams stops, or as soon as they get to the next song and it doesn't happen. My husband is an artist, musician, producer, writer. If he doesn't play guitar every day, it's like it's destroying him. It's like breathing oxygen. And to me, those are the people that I want to work with. And I'm very stubborn, and that's what I do still. At BMG, I fought like hell. There was a band called Nathaniel Rateliff and the Night Sweats, and they became massive with a song called SOB. Nathaniel had done 4 records and probably sold 2 copies of each. And then suddenly he decided to create a band. And I went to the head of the company and said, we need to re-sign him. And he said, no, he hasn't sold anything. I said, listen to this record. He listened, didn't change his mind because he wasn't an A&R person. So I literally had to get down on my knees, said I'd eat my hat, and they could fire me if it didn't work. So they signed him, but they made me give him less money than he was owed. So suddenly he sells millions of records at a time when people were not doing that in that area of music, which has sort of become big now, which was sort of the Americana world. When the contract was up for that one more song, he said they tried to sign him for like over $1 million. And he said no, and he went somewhere else. And it wasn't because of me. It was because he said that the company only signed him because I begged, and they gave him less money. So they actually didn't believe in him. So why should he stay? Labels are very short-sighted at the moment. They really are. There's some great labels. I love Partisan. There's a few that I can mention that I love, but they're run by A&R people. And originally that was the case. I mean, you look at Sire Records, you look at Ahmet Erdogan, you look at Mo Austin, you look at these people that actually knew good music. Now the labels tend to be run by finance. They tend to be run by, financial people. And people who, as I said, want immediate satisfaction and are spending most of their money buying catalog, whether it be masters or publishing. And once again, I did not sign up for that, but I'm still doing it, and I'm doing it on my own terms.
For you, when you hear a song or see an artist that in your mind has got it, what is that feeling? What is that resonance for you to say, I can feel or see something in this person or this song?
It varies. To me, it's a gut feeling. And if it goes into my head, something's wrong. It's about charisma. It's about feeling. It's about being genuine. It's about being unique and willing not to just sound like other people. It's about performance. I never signed an artist that I didn't go see perform. And when I would have a lot of music, I would actually erase all of it because I knew when I would hear something, this is the one. And all the others I was considering. And considering is not good enough. And I can't say, the kids would love this. Like, if I don't love it, I can't sign it because I can't contribute. I can't stand up for the artist. I don't enjoy it. So I feel like I need to be a punter. I signed Moby Play, that record that got gazillions. It was the first sort of record that did stream on sync that allowed other artists to believe it was okay to do sync. And I was driving towards Woodstock from Manhattan, and this song came on, and it had field music, field songs, and then this weird techno beat. And I pulled over, I called the radio station, the local station. I said, what the hell is this? And they said it was Moby. And up until then, he'd only been doing really intense dance music. So I called his manager and I said, I want to sign him. Like, literally pulled over to the road, side of the road. And he said, I'm sorry, Kate. It was at V2, which is Virgin 2. But the president of the company, who was a marketing guy, has already passed on it. And I said, ignore him. He doesn't know what he's talking about. I'm going to sign this. And I went to the office and I told the president, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm signing this. And he was like, used to me being that way. So I signed it. I found out later that every single label had turned it down because they didn't know what to do with it, because it was so unique. As I go back to that, nothing sounded like it. And of course, it sold like over 10 million records worldwide. So that was gut. I mean, that was basically pure gut. I mean, I literally didn't think it through. It was just pull over, gotta have it, gotta do it, love it. That's the bottom line for me.
I read an article about 3 years ago that the major radio stations in the UK would not play any female artists over the age of 30 because they perceive that artist to be no longer relevant. Now, I read the Bananarama autobiography, and I remember back in the 80s when the girls turned 23, 24, the record label said, sorry, we dumped
London Records, Roger Ames, yes.
Said, no, we no longer want you because you're too old. Now, I do feel that maybe social media has helped with this a little bit because a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, Kylie came out with Padam Padam, and the radio station would not again play it because at that stage she was 55, 56, and they said, no way, she's too old. She blew up on social media, which forced the radio station to play her, which then made her top 10. Do you think that social media is helping break down these barriers a little bit over time, or what are your thoughts around this?
Oh, everything's changed. In the beginning, people would say, I have my girl. We have the girl. In other words, one girl. So that was pretty shitty. Then MTV came along, and if you weren't pretty, there were exceptions, like Tracy Chapman, who was older. But that created a situation where, I'll give you a story. Terry Ellis from Imago, who was the Ellis from Chrysalis, he dated the girl from the Carpenters.
Oh, Karen Carpenter.
Yes.
Yes.
And he told her she was fat. So she started to lose weight. She died of anorexia. I know probably not supposed to name names, but I do. Um, I feel like things changed all of a sudden, and for a certain amount of time, there were more women in the charts than men. That happened before social media. A lot of pop singers, Beyonce, those kinds of people, they're older now and they're continuing. People aren't being dropped that way. Anyone would sign Patti Smith. In fact, I signed her to publishing at BMG. I think the ageism is always going to exist with certain idiots, and other people won't think about that. It's ironic that you mentioned this because I was teaching at the Songwriting Academy in the UK virtually, and you'd have half an hour. Somebody would make an appointment with you. You'd listen to one song and talk about the song. And this woman, Alison Craig, I got on the phone with her, on a Zoom with her, and she sent me a song. It was unbelievable. It was an incredible song. I said, "How long have you been writing?" She said, "This is my first song I've ever written." I said, "How old are you?" Women are allowed to ask women that. And she said, "I'm 60. And she has a record out now. It's doing really well in the UK. And the story is an incredible story. She was a DJ, then she wrote books, and
Yes.
she had talk shows. And the fact that she's 60 is so inspiring to even young women. But it's not just women, it's men as well that are considered too old at a certain point. And in the meantime, you have these bands reuniting that are in their 70s, which I think might help to a certain degree because kids are considering that less. But I think, young people want to hear other young people. They identify with them when they're in their teens. But for example, my daughter, she listens to everything. Nina Simone is one of her favorite artists. So it depends, I think, on how the punters have grown up. And I think that the labels are seriously, a lot of them, out of touch with the audience. I think the audience just loves, a lot of them love great music. I don't think that kids are given enough credit for liking good music. They're just fed crap. So if you're just fed canned food, you don't know about a
Yes.
really good meal. That's the way I look at it. I don't
Okay.
want to put kids down.
Yeah.
But with the posting and all of the, TikTok, all of that kind of stuff, I don't know if you know, but you probably do, but there's all of these things going viral with older women. There's one woman who started a song called "I Don't Give a Fuck Anymore." She was French.
Mm.
And all these women started wearing pajamas and fluffy slippers and wandering around singing "I don't give a fuck anymore." There's a lot of that going on. That's actually going viral. And it's not about the music, it's just about women and their attitude.
Yes.
And most of the people that buy music are over 30. So, there's that as well. At some point, I wanted to start a label called 40 plus. If you were younger than 40, I would not sign you. This is a long time ago, and I actually feel like I was ahead of the ahead of the curve. I think with Spotify as well, nobody really knows what age you are. So if there's a great song or somebody's been around for a long time and suddenly they change the name of who they are, nobody's going to really know. So I actually feel, as I said, there's always going to be ageism, but women are stronger. They're not willing to put up with it now that they can have their own career. And as we said, they have to create it themselves. Nobody can stop them. It's not like they need to be signed anymore. The labels are really only there to sign pop music
Yeah.
that costs so much money to promote. I mean, Beth Orton was signed to, I signed her publishing. She was signed to Partisan, which is why I love them. And she was in her 40s when, I hope Beth doesn't hear this. She'd been around for a very long time, and she made a record that was #1 in the New York Times at the end of the year. There's those kind of career artists that I don't think it matters at all.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Celeb Savant. Please follow Barrett on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook at Celeb Savant. That's CelebSavant.